Hello and welcome to the live recording, Cayman, of episode 34 of the Spotlight Games podcast. Today we'll be talking about trophy support coming to PlayStation Classics, Death Stranding 2, the Evil Dead game, and the rest of this week's news, as well as, Cayman, the video game stories that made the biggest impact on us and you, our audience. I'm your host, Patrick, and as always, I'm joined. What I had planned on saying to you, Cayman, was my very own mustachioed Victor Sullivan, but the mustache is gone, Cayman.
The mustache is gone.
What happened?
It was a kind of a funny situation. I was going to shave the mustache off once I became employed again.
Okay.
And I became employed.
Yep.
And I didn't shave the mustache off. And so the disgustache remained intact.
Disgustache.
And then the other day I made the comment how I was going to shave it off. And I got up, it was during the weekend, I got up. And my fiance was like, "Oh, I thought you were going to shave the mustache off." So I was like, and then I shaved the fucking mustache off. So it was funny. I walked out without the mustache and she looked at me shocked and appalled and was like, you look like a completely different person now. I don't know what to think seeing you without a mustache. And I too looked in the mirror and I said, I look like a different human being, a human being I don't like.
Hey, come on.
I think the mustache will come back. I will shave it off again when I do my wedding, because let's be honest, no one wants to see that shit in wedding photos 30 years from now.
It took you what, 3-4 years to grow that much, right?
It was like 6 months.
Okay. It took you
like, it's just not a fucking joke. No, it really, the 3 to 4 years is the best. That's fair, but no, it did take me like 6 months to grow that fucking disgusting, poorly kept mange of mustache hair that looked more like an 8th grader who just hit puberty than a 31-year-old man. But here we are.
Disgustache is a term I've never heard before. I kind of love it. But we've talked about your former mustache, aka the Disgustache, far too much, Cayman. Let's jump into some quick housekeeping and get on to the show, because we have a lot of video game stuff to talk about, because this is the Spotlight Games podcast, where each and every week we're going to talk about the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing on YouTube or subscribing in the podcast app of your choice. Don't forget, you can be on the show by joining us live, twitch.tv/spotgamespod, which is what we're doing right now. You can drop some comments in the chat, be part of the conversation, as it were, or you can email us, mail at spotlightgames.net, DM us on Twitter at spotgamespod, or on Instagram and TikTok at Spotlight Games Pod. Spotlight Games Pod, Instagram, TikTok. Spot Games Pod, Twitter.
Whoa. We got to do some synergy, man.
That was a little, I know, we got to synergize. That was a little spoken word for you, though. But yeah, so go give us a follow on Twitch. It's our newest place we're at Spotlight Games Pod, or /Spotlight Games Pod. So you can follow along, watch the show, be part of the show. This week came in some other housekeeping. Our newest episode of Save Trash Cinema. We had another crossover episode. We reviewed the Sony commercial success blockbuster Uncharted. I think your favorite movie of the last several years, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's a movie. It exists.
You loved it. Don't lie. Hey, we have a lot of news to get through. So why don't we jump in with how we start every episode here of the Spotlight Games podcast when we're not talking about the Disgustache, with what we've been playing. Cayman, what have you been playing?
Well, Patrick, I have been playing Evil Dead, the game. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And my name is Mayo 3 Platinum.
Ooh,
I'm gonna hold off. I'm gonna hold off on the Evil Dead the game, because we will be discussing that in a little bit. I want to get my thoughts when it's apropos. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, however, I can give a little bit. I got it in the mail yesterday. My fiance and I sat down. We played probably 3 to 4 hours of it, and it just hits. It just hits. Like, it just feels good.
Good.
It feels like it's different than Borderlands. It's way more, if you enjoyed the one-shot DLC, the Assault on Dragon Keep DLC, you will enjoy this. It's way more tabletop than a normal Borderlands game. Like they really lean into that, which gives it feels fresh, right? And I don't know, man. I haven't put enough time into it to really give like a full review.
Sure.
But I've put enough time into it to be able to say that I'm enjoying what I've seen so far.
Nice.
The humor is there. The gameplay feels tight. It feels solid. Borderlands always feels good as a shooter, and that has not changed. The inventory system is a little bit complicated. I'm still kind of getting around that because it is a little bit weird. It's a little more obtuse than I would say previous Borderlands games are. It could just be that we're playing in co-op mode and have since we started. And we probably will play the entire game in co-op mode. That's the goal. And so it could just be that it might just be because we're playing in co-op mode that the inventory system feels a little weird.
Sure.
Or it could just be that we're just now really getting into the meat of the game, like the story is starting to pick up, and that we just haven't really figured out all the mechanics yet. So that could be it. Now, I want to go ahead and say I knocked out my 46th platinum.
Whoa!
With My Name is Mayo 3.
Humble
and
brag.
with a game that's an hour long, I can't say too much without spoiling everything about it. But I will say that I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. They tried the second half of the game. They tried to do more than just tapping a mayo jar.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's a good thing. Because I don't know. There's something about the way that My Name is Mayo 1 and 2 works that it just works really well. With that being said, though, I will say that this is very much a good send-off for the My Name is Mayo trilogy. And it's sad. It's a very sad game.
Wow. I never would have expected.
Yeah, it'll really fuck with you. And that's the thing. It's like when I said on the last episode was with My Name is Mayo, like, don't let the mechanics or the premise fool you. It is a very funny, very meta game, but it also has a very introspective side. And honestly, it tugs on your heartstrings more than most games that actually set out to pull on your heartstrings. And I think they really do that with the third part. Once again, it's a $2, $9.99 to pick it up. Takes an hour to get the platinum. You really don't have to do anything to get the platinum. It's not, and that's kind of one of the selling points, I think, for the game itself, as is with the previous two. But there's a lot of heart there that gets left behind. And a lot of people look at it as like, oh, this is a cheap trophy. And that's why I do it. And I respect the developers, Green Lava Studios. I respect them for doing that. Because the game is sold on, hey, this is $1, this is a 99 cent, this is a $2 platinum. And for some people, they'll pick it up just because of that. But then what they hide in there is a lot of heart, a lot of soul, and a lot of feels that you wouldn't expect. And because they do it and they sell the game at a very low price and they sell the game as a cheap, easy platinum, like they kind of sneak that up on you, right? And, man, by the end of the game, I was like, shit, like it deals with a lot. It deals with grief, losing a loved one. And it makes you think, it makes you really, I would say if anyone wants to pick up the game, you need to sit through the entirety of the credits. You've already popped the platinum at that point, but 100% you need to.
Is it setting up the Mayo Cinematic Universe, the true MCU?
I wish it was. But what it does in the credits, and they do with all the games, this one I think is even more important. Look, we've all gone through with the pandemic, with COVID. We've lost loved ones. We've lost people that we care about. The world's a shitty place right now, and it doesn't get any better. Like there was a school shooting today in Texas that took 14 lives. That fucking sucks. And this game kind of deals with some stuff like that. And in the credits, it's a lot about like time is precious and time with the people you care about is precious. And it's so funny to say that with a game called fucking My Name is Mayo 3.
Yeah.
And so,
I honestly am so shocked that there is this much to discuss about My Name is Mayo 3 and that this is where the conversation went.
And I think that's what I love about these games, right? That there are moments like that in them.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend it. like I said, it's $2. Support the studio. They make funny games, and they make games that are moving and are weird, and we need more of this kind of stuff. And so I would 100% recommend, like, everyone pick it up. It
Okay.
takes an hour to beat it, and you get a platinum at the end. Like, there's no reason not to.
Okay.
And so I would say everyone do it. You won't regret your decision. I can say that.
I hear you.
Now, Patrick,
Yeah.
let's get done with the sad shit. Tell me what you've been playing, because I'm very curious to hear about your thoughts on a finished Trek to Yomi.
Yeah, so I've been dabbling a little bit. I'm still in this funk. I'm still trying to figure out like what I want to be doing with my video game time, because there still hasn't been like, I think I'm really on the edge of abandoning Cyberpunk, which is really disappointing to me. After like I was very high on it last week, but I played like 20 minutes since last week, and I just like I'm not feeling drawn back. But what I have been playing, I finished Trek to Yomi on Xbox Game Pass. Really lovely game. Like the last time that I had spoken about it, I kind of gave like a truncated review since I hadn't finished it yet. So I won't say too much more, but they do something that I hadn't gotten to yet in the game, which is like light spoilers, but it's not a very long game. But it goes like full supernatural. And that if you know anything about like Shinto or Japanese culture, which I wasn't aware of this and then I looked it up and it was like, oh, okay. Yomi is like in Shinto culture, it's the land of the dead. And so the name Trek to Yomi, like it suggests that it is a trek to the land of the dead. And so there's like a lot of supernatural shit that ended up being like just to like double down on what I had said last time, just the cinematic quality and the graphical fidelity of this game. It's so beautiful. The story ended up being really like kind of meh to me. Sure. It didn't nail it with the story, but I do think if you have Game Pass or if like the premise and the aesthetic is interesting to you at all, I would suggest getting it, because 4 to 6 hours, I thought it was totally worth my time. Don't think that I'm not going to like go trophy hunting for it or achievement hunting on Xbox for it, but yeah, definitely recommend it. I've also been playing NHL 22, another Game Pass game. I've been kind of bouncing around on Game Pass because I've just been trying to find that next thing. I haven't played a hockey game in probably 8 years, but hockey games used to be back long time ago when I played hockey was a really fun thing, like especially for me and my brothers. And it's playoffs. I'm a big Avalanche fan of the NHL. So it's like, it's one of those things where I will probably be playing this like for the rest of the NHL playoffs from time to time. But past that, like it's not going to stick around, but it's fun. Like it's just another NHL game with better graphics and updated rosters. There's really nothing new to it. But I've also been playing via Game Pass, and this is the last game that I have to talk about today, a game that I downloaded simply because of the title, because the title made me laugh out loud. And it's called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion.
I'm sorry, what?
Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. In this game, Cayman, you play as a turnip boy who has committed tax evasion and is tasked with like clearing his name in this village as being someone who's committed tax evasion. It's hilarious. It's a really funny video game. I played maybe an hour of it. Again, Game Pass. It's like a 2D art style. It's kind of like old school Zelda in that it's like a screen to screen game. So like it'll just be a square. When you go to the next screen, the game moves with you to a new screen. I don't know if there's like a term for that, but that's kind of the way that the game, the aesthetic is. It has like really light dungeons. Really, I don't know. It's a weird game. Like I don't know that I'm going to see it through to completion. I don't know how long it is. I haven't looked it up at all. I was just like, this name grabbed my attention. In a thing on the Xbox where you can download whatever game as long as you have the service. And I was like, you know what? I'm bored. My wife is in Las Vegas. I'm home alone. Let's play Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. And
I love it.
So yeah, I will, depending on how much more I play, I will report back with updated thoughts. But at the very least, it gave me a good laugh.
Well, if the audience is interested in playing it but don't have an Xbox, guess what? You can also play it on PC and Nintendo Switch. Just
Nice.
look that up.
I think this would be a great Switch game. Like being able
Okay.
because there's no voice acting. The soundtrack is nice, but it's not like the soundtrack isn't particularly. I'm not gonna walk away thinking of Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion's soundtrack. If the composer is in the audience, I apologize.
So what I'm hearing
it's
is,
nice. It's just
this is a game that once you hear the soundtrack and you're like, I get the gist, you lower the volume, you put on Spotlight Games podcast.
Whoa, maybe.
And then you listen to your favorite podcast while playing Turnip Boy Evades.
Or maybe you're watching it live on twitch.tv/Spotlight GameSpot.
That is true.
But yeah, so that's what I've been playing.
Dope.
Why don't we shift our focus to the news, Cayman?
Let's shift our focus to the news.
We have a few interesting pieces today.
Okay.
So this is the first one I'm pulling directly from Twitter, twitter.com. I don't know if you've heard of it. The official Sony Bend Twitter account. Sony Bend, known for games like I want to say Gone Home, but that's not what it's called. What's the zombie game? Days Gone.
Days Gone.
It had the name Gone in it. You see,
I was going to say Gone Home again. And I was like, that's not right.
Days Gone, or what is relevant to this story, Siphon Filter. So they announced directly from Sony Bend that they are bringing trophy support to the PlayStation Classic version of PlayStation Plus that's going to be launching in just a few short weeks. So there's not like a ton to report other than I'm curious, Cayman, if this announcement to you is news that perhaps we're going to be getting more PlayStation Classics with trophy support, because that's kind of been one of the question marks is, well, they're bringing in back all these old games, they're remastering or whatever, PS1, PS2 games, but are there going to be trophies? This straight from Sony Bend, they've said, and since then there've been some updates that other ones have announced it. But yeah, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is going to be the normal thing with these old games?
So in Days Gone, there are a lot of Easter eggs that talk about the universe of Siphon Filter. So when this first was announced, I was like, holy shit. If they're going to be adding trophy support to this game, I genuinely believe that this might mean like there's still interest in Siphon Filter at Sony Bend. And I legitimately thought like, holy fuck, like this could be the first like sign that there's a new Siphon Filter game coming. Because God knows if we would get another Days Gone. I mean, the game sold fairly well.
Yeah.
It reviewed okay. There was a lot of bugs in the beginning. After patch, people enjoyed it way more.
Huh.
And I was like, okay, I think this is it. But they announced on May 23rd, Wild Arms, IQ, Intelligent Cube, Hot Shots, and Ape Escape will also have trophies. So then I had to take a step back and I had to reevaluate my initial thoughts.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? We could just potentially be getting trophy support for like a fuck ton of these games. If not all of these games could be end up getting trophy support. I think that's awesome.
I think that's so cool. Yeah.
Something like someone like me who is like a trophy guy. And it's honestly like, I'll have to admit, and we should do an episode on this one time about how trophies have broken my will, because I don't like playing games anymore unless I get trophies. It was even funny. My fiance, she's playing Kirby right now. I've kind of taken a step back to play some other things. She's still playing Kirby. And she's like, you know what would make this game so much better? Trophies. And I was like, I've broken you too. I'm a monster.
A platinum hunter herself, Sid.
She is. Yeah, no, she's got like...
She got the Forbidden West platinum before I did.
She did, indeed. Yeah. She's gotten, I think, 12 or 13 platinums. She is right behind me.
She's well on her way to surpass my number of platinums.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of like, this now gives me incentive, because I would love to go back and replay Wild Arms. I loved Wild Arms. With trophy support, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
100%. I'm back in Wild Arms, baby.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
But I also think that maybe my hopes that we would have, like, this was the sign that Siphon Filter would come back, which I think there is a world where Siphon Filter would succeed today, in a world where there's not really that many stealth-focused games like that.
Yeah.
There's the remake of Splinter Cell coming around the corner whenever that comes. But there's not that many like true like spy style
Sure.
stealth games. And so, I mean, outside of like, games that are not indie games and shit like that, like there's not like a triple A game like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm kind of taking a step back from that initial thought and kind of moving to like, this is still good. But I am tempering expectations on some of my more wild
Sure.
hopes.
Yeah, I had never considered that this could potentially be the beginning of like a reboot of Siphon Filter until you just said that. And even though you are now less in on that thought, I'm actually more in on that thought. Like, I think it may like that. It could just be circumstantial that because PlayStation is allowing trophy support, so they're doing it. But I wonder if there could be a connection. There's only one way to find out, Cameron.
Yeah.
And that's to wait and see.
That is to wait and see. Speaking of waiting and seeing, guess what, Patrick?
What, Cameron?
Death Stranding 2 unofficially confirmed.
This is so funny to me.
So this comes from Nebellion on Twitter. He posted this snippet from an interview with Norman Reedus on, quote, the Leo edit. I'm not familiar with the publication, but this comes from the Twitter where Norman Reedus basically confirmed Death Stranding 2. This is how the snippet reads. This is the interviewer asking the question. He says, okay, so you got the book going on. You've got the final season coming out. Then the spinoff, he's talking about Walking Dead. And you're filming Death Stranding, the video game. He says, we just started the second one. And he responds with, how did that come about? He says, this is Norman Reedus. He says, Guillermo del Toro, who gave me my first movie, called me up and said, hey, there's a guy named Hideo Kojima. He's going to call you. Just say yes. And I go, what do you mean? Just say yes. He goes on, stop being an asshole. Just say yes, which is like the most Guillermo del Toro shit ever.
Yeah.
And he goes, then I was in San Diego and Hideo came in with a big group of people. He's from Tokyo and he showed me what he was working on, a game called Silent Hill. I was blown away by what he was showing me and I was like, yes, let's do this. It's not Miss Pac-Man. It's so realistic. It's so futuristic. It's so complicated and beautiful. And I was completely blown away. It took me maybe 2 or 3 years to finish all the mocap sessions and everything. It takes a lot of work. And then the game came out and it just won all these awards and it was a huge thing. So we just started part 2 of that. That's the end of his.
And like, I think it's so funny that in this interview, he's just like, yeah, no, we're doing it. And then Kojima on Twitter tweeted out, he like told, I forget exactly what he said, but he told Norman Reedus to like go to his room or something for saying like basically saying that the game, which and like sure, I think it was a pretty safe bet to assume the Death Stranding 2 was coming, but for him to just so nonchalantly be like, oh yeah, no, we're doing that. Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I'm doing mocap this as we speak. Did you ever play Death Stranding?
No, but it will be part of the new PlayStation Plus tiers.
Yeah.
And so I'm definitely going to give it a shake. I don't think it's a game for me just based on what I've seen. The game looks beautiful. Like, it looks really good. But ultimately, I don't think that a walking simulator... Yeah, I would say it's probably a walking simulator.
I mean, it's basically like a USPS simulator set in a post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll give it a shake just to see. I don't think it's a game that's for me. I could be completely wrong. I've been shocked before. I might be in love with it, but
I could see this being really your shit.
I mean, it very well could be. It very, very well could be. And I'm excited to get my hands on it. But ultimately, I just don't know. I think it's it looks like one of those games where you have to be in the right mood for it.
Definitely.
I could definitely see this being a game where like I give it a shot and I'm like 5 hours in and being like, yeah, it's just not. Or it could be I'm 5 hours in and I'm like, holy fuck, this is the game for me. And I will play it to infinity or whatever.
It's so over the top. Like, and the all-star cast, Mads Mikkelsen, Norman Reedus, Lea Seydoux, Troy Baker. There's other names that are not coming to me, but yeah, it definitely, parts of it I loved and parts of it I was like, okay, this is enough. But yeah, because they're bringing the director's cut to PlayStation Plus, so it'll even be a more full version of the game. So that's
cool. I think
me.
it's cool. It's weird as hell. But my biggest question rolling off of that announcement is, will this come to Xbox? Because Kojima Productions is not bound by Sony. Now, sure, Death Stranding was released exclusive on PlayStation, but if I'm not mistaken, Sony does not own the rights to Death Stranding.
I don't think they do, no.
And so there's a world in which this could be coming to both. And I think that's really cool because I want everyone to be able to play everything that they can get their hands on.
Yeah.
And so I hope that it comes to both. I think that's great.
Could be.
And it's exciting. I mean, they're working on it. Like you said, it took 2 years plus to do all of the mocap sessions. I don't foresee this game coming out within the next couple of years. I mean, it might, but I would probably say 2024 more likely we'll get. That'll probably be the release date. So we might see some stuff. We might see like a teaser at the end of the year. Maybe. But I don't think we'll see anything until 2023.
Yeah. Well, something we can see today, Cayman, is the Evil Dead game.
Yes.
So we have some reviews that we've pulled. We have a little bit of a reviews roundup. We got one from IGN. We got one from GameSpot. And then I want to hear your impressions. Okay. But I will start us off with the IGN review from Travis Northup, which is an 8 out of 10. His verdict reads as such. Evil Dead the game is an awesome asymmetric multiplayer game that, like its source material, is far better than it has any right to be given its frustrating lack of polish and being somewhat light on maps and modes. Playing as a survivor is a fantastic cooperative shooter experience despite frequent problems with janky level geometry that leads to unfair deaths and other questionable design choices. While playing as the evil mastermind is just downright magnificent thanks to the amusingly fiendish ways you can mess with the other team. The single-player story missions are a distressing mess that I could have done without being forced to play through story unlocks. But everything else proves worthy of the classic cheesy movies that inspired it. So a very positive spin. This next one from Mark Delaney at GameSpot, not as positive. This is a 6 out of 10. Mark says, Evil Dead the game is faithful, but sometimes to a fault. If there were more game modes or even more varied objectives in its one attractive game mode, it would feel more like a game for horror fans to play for a long time. Maybe even moving competitors like Dead by Daylight or Hunt Showdown off their vaunted pedestals. As it stands at launch, however, Evil Dead only reaches beyond something pretty good when it's played with a close-knit group of Evil Dead fans. General horror or co-op enthusiasts may get some mileage out of it, but Ash and his boomstick are storming into a crowded field of competitors and can't quite overcome the horde of similar games already available. That one is more so what I was afraid of with this game, but you've the one that's played it a little bit.
Yeah.
So what? Straight from Cayman's mouth, tell us about Evil Dead the game.
So I think from my experience with it, which has only been a few hours, I would say it fits neatly in between both of those reviews.
Okay.
I agree that there's janky geometry that can really fuck up a good run as a survivor, mainly as a survivor. I got a couple rounds in as a survivor, a couple rounds in as a demon. And what I can say is that I could see this game being my next addiction.
Really?
It's really fun.
Cool.
It's janky. Sure, there's janky. I wish there was a lock-on system, especially when you're a survivor and you're taking out people, because sometimes you can get like 2 or 3. It's not easy. The game is not easy. The single-player missions are, like they said, frustrating. They can be very frustrating at times. There's no like checkpoint system, which is a pain in the ass. But I won a couple rounds. I lost a couple rounds. I will say that there's definitely like with a group of friends, I could see this being fucking awesome.
Really?
But you know, keep in mind, this is coming from rose-colored glasses because I am an Evil Dead fan.
Sure.
And so there a lot of it is too. It's just like it's fun being as Ash. It's fun hearing these characters make their quips and retorts and whatnot. Playing as a demon is incredibly fun. The way that it feels like you're in the movies or the TV series, like you get. So like one of the things they do is that the demons in it are pretty much invisible, like the Evil Dead, the Force, right? And it floats around, and you get like this POV of the demon's view, and they're flying towards things. They move at like breakneck speed. You get that in the game, and you feel like you are the Evil Dead. You feel like you are the Force there, the demons, right? The way that they've incorporated elements of the movies and the TV series, I think, are done expertly well.
Okay.
But it is hampered by the fact that there is kind of a little bit of a frustrating level up system that can kind of tilt the favor towards one group or the other, depending on who is more leveled. And that can be very frustrating. One of the matches in particular, we were up against someone. It was just like I was just in a random party as a survivor. And we were all like just level like 1, 2, 3, 4 up against someone that was like level 25 as the demon. And that kind of hampered the fun because it got really hard really fast. And without having the ability to communicate, because it was a random party, that really sucked. But I will say that if there's some balancing with some of that, if there's some adjustments and patches with some of the geometry, we already know. The IGN review mentions how like the limited map variety sucks. We already know, they've already announced that coming within probably the next month or so, they're going to be adding Castle Candor from the Army of Darkness movie.
Cool.
Will be a map. So there will be, now the maps are massive, like huge. And so out of all of the matches I played, which is probably about 5 or 6, I don't think I saw a repeating starting area in that time. Now I can see, match 2025, starting to see some repetition with the inclusion of the Castle Candor. I think that's really going to alleviate that issue. And we know that there's patches coming to fix some other stuff. I just really hope that they add a lock-in system. That'll make things a lot easier as a survivor, because you definitely do feel like the demons 100% have the upper hand at all times. And I get that. Like, that's because it's 4v1. So I understand why they would do that. But I do think that would help alleviate some of that struggle. And I hope they kind of balance some of the difficulty of like with matchmaking, that you aren't stuck in a match with someone who's like way over leveled and has way more shit at their utilization. And they kind of fix that. I'm very excited. We started up a Discord channel for Save Trash Cinema. And part of that Discord, we're actually already having conversations in the Discord channel about getting a group of people together to do some games. So I'm very excited about that. So for the audience, Save Trash Cinema Discord channel, if you're interested in it, let us know. Join into it. And if you want to play the game with us, I'm very excited to get in. We can do private matches and have like an audience play, which I think would be a ton of fun.
I will probably be picking it up as well, because it's a budget title. It's only $40.
Yeah, only $40.
So, and maybe it'll be the thing that I want for a little bit. And because I like the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that because the Friday the 13th game, which is made by the same developers, huge, became a massive hit.
Yeah.
And it was stifled by a lot of legal issues, which isn't happening this time.
Yeah.
And so I do think that there is a world in which this game takes off and dethrones things like Dead by Daylight.
Could do.
I do. But enough about the Evil Dead game, Patrick. I want to talk about some weird ass shit.
This is some weird ass shit. Okay.
Capcom launches the 10th anniversary website for Dragon's Dogma. So the story here is really simple. Capcom launched a website to celebrate Dragon's Dogma's 10th anniversary, and this is what it says. Dragon's Dogma, first released in 2012, is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Thank you, Arisen, for taking up arms and braving through the impossible challenges laid ahead of you. We are forever grateful for your support throughout the years and hope you will join us in this momentous celebration of Dragon's Dogma.
So, I am not convinced that they just put out a website to say thank you and keep your eyes peeled, essentially, for there not to be news. So the question becomes, is the news a remaster, a remake, a sequel, a spinoff? What do you think? Because Dragon's Dogma, this is one of those games that you talk about all the time, right? Or am I getting it mixed up with Dante's Inferno? Or is it both?
So I love Dante's Inferno, but I do love Dragon's Dogma.
Okay.
Dragon's Dogma, for the audience that are not initiated, is a very weird game. It blends elements of games like Dark Souls, not to the extreme that Dark Souls is, but it has some elements of that, more so the world building. It blends in elements of things like Monster Hunter, a little bit of like Dragon Age. It's a very unique title that I think was very ahead of its time, to both its positive and its detriment, because some of those systems I don't think were fully fleshed out when the game was released, where I think now those systems have been worked to a point that I think that you could perfect them. I hope it is a remake, not a remaster. And the reason I say that is more often than not with remasters, you still get that janky shit, right? Like you just get the brokenness.
Yeah.
And they just make it look better, but they don't fix the technical issues within the game. So I think like a genuine remake or a reboot or something that takes all the elements from the game and pulls them back together into like a full release, I think would be fucking great.
Cool.
And I just really hope that Capcom doesn't let us down.
We'll see.
Because I could very well see them just being like, yeah, man, here's a skateboard, Konami style.
My question to you is, you mentioned all these games that seem to kind of be an influence for Dragon's Dogma, things like Dark Souls, things like Dragon Age. My question to you, Cayman, is how much of an influence is obvious of the 1999 flick Dogma, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck in this game? Is there any connection to the Kevin Smith film?
Well, there actually is a cameo in the game.
Okay.
Where Alanis Morissette is God.
Wow. How about that?
That's a deep fucking cut, man.
I don't
deep cut.
I don't know why more people aren't talking about this connection between Dragon's Dogma and the 1999 flick Dogma.
I have no clue.
Maybe it's because they're talking about the Final Fantasy news that's supposedly incoming next month. Cayman.
Tell me all about this.
So Andy Robinson at VGC reported this a few days ago. Apparently, Square Enix is set to make an announcement regarding the 25th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII next month. That's according to director Tetsuya Nomura, who shared the news during a Japanese live stream focused on the mobile battle royale Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier on Wednesday, a game I've never heard of until reading this story. It's possible June's announcements could include the reveal of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, since Square Enix has previously indicated that it would like to share details on the sequel during this anniversary year. 2022 is not a milestone year for Final Fantasy VII, but also, 2022 is not only, Patrick, a milestone year for Final Fantasy VII, but also the series itself. And publisher Square Enix recently said it intends to release several new games this year, but that its plans are centered around its most high-profile franchise. Final Fantasy XVI producer Naoki Yoshida also said that a new trailer for that game will be released soon. Nomura has also said that compared to last year's Intergrade re-release, that Part 2 will make more use of PlayStation 5's unique hardware features. So, because it's been a minute, right? This is what, a 2019 game? The Part 1 of Final Fantasy VII, is that right?
Let me think here. That sounds right. Yes, it is 2019, because I remember them releasing the
2020 apparently.
Wait, 2020 was
April 10th, 2020 is what an initial Google search tells me.
Oh, interesting. I thought it came out. Okay, it's fine. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're in 2022. They've already got the engine. They've already got everything kind of put in place. I would say, because you got to think that while they were releasing, like during the launch of Part 1, that there was a full team using all of the art, all of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Already in motion. And one would assume, because the game was technically supposed to release as one full package with parts 1 and 2, that they were probably at least far enough along that they were able to say, like, hey, we don't have the second half of this game ready yet. Let's go ahead and release Part 1, and we've got time to release Part 2. I think the irony, if they announce that they're canceling Part 2 at the event, is fucking comedy gold.
There's no way.
comedy gold, baby.
I mean, it would be comedy gold.
Comedy
Because
gold.
so I didn't ever finish the original Final Fantasy VII, but to my understanding, the remake is only like the first disc of like a 3 or 4 disc game. So it doesn't seem like part 2 is even the rest of the game. It seems like it's going to be more than 2 parts.
I could see them concluding the game with part 2.
Yeah.
I could definitely see them concluding the game with part 2.
Okay.
Where the game ends is essentially the end of disc 1, start of disc 2. Well, not even the end of disc 1, because the end of disc 1, well, there's a huge spoiler I want to bring up if no one's played it. But there's a huge spoiler that comes up. So either way, there's a chance that there's 3 parts to this game. If that's the case, that's fucking wild. And
it'll take a decade to finish.
Yeah, take a decade to put. I mean, shit. I mean, the remake of this game took how many years for it to fucking come out? So long if you want to take your time. No, I think that my one thing that I would say that I'm like, this is interesting to me, is if the game was being developed on PlayStation 4 and part 2 is now going to be launched during the quote unquote next gen, which I feel like we all still say next gen consoles. Well, even though we're in this gen, but with it backlogged so much on like we can't get these out, it still kind of feels like that. But my thing is, will this game launch on PlayStation 4 as well as PlayStation 5? Is it fully optimized for PlayStation 5? Are they going to release it just on PlayStation 5? Because the part 1 was released just on PlayStation 4. But they don't have to do that. I mean, there's other Final Fantasy games that have been launched on multiple consoles.
Yeah.
So then there's the question of what does that contract look like? But then I think the big thing for me is just like, are you having to scrap a lot of work because this has been pushed back so far that we're now like, you're like, hey, this is not optimized. I mean, look at something like Elden Ring, right? Where it was better to get the PlayStation 4 version and get the optimization patch than to get the native place. So there's a lot of questions I have with like how that is going to work in the grand scheme of how this game launches. But also, how fucking funny would it be if the game just didn't come out at all? Like, I would hate it. I would love to. I want the whole game to come out. But I mean, look, we're at a point now where it's like, this would be funny.
Sure. It would be so shocking.
It would be like the biggest punch in the gut.
To
everyone.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. A few short weeks and we'll have
a few
more answers. But yeah, so that's it for the news of this week, Cayman. But there's more to discuss because a listener of our show, he might even still be in our Twitch chat at the moment. If you are, say hi, Nick. Nick sent me a question on Instagram that I was interested by and I wanted to talk about with you. And I also polled our audience and I have some audience answers as well. So this is what Nick asked, Cayman. What game or game's story / message impacted you the most? As he asked this question, I sat back and I thought to myself, is this like some of these other topics, these non-news topics that we've done in the past, things like what makes a video game masterpiece and like what are our favorite franchises? I was like, have we kind of answered this question? But then I was thinking about it. I was like, not necessarily. Like there might be some overlap, but I think this is worth discussing. And I want to say, there he is. Hi, Nick. I want to open it up and talk about it. So, Cayman, I ask you, what is a video game story that has left an impact? Or what is the video game story that has left the most impact on you? I'm wording this poorly, but impacted you the most.
This is going to sound crazy. My name, no. I almost got you there.
You did.
All right, for me, I'm gonna say Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Really? Okay. Tell me.
The reason being is the story of Ichi is, we got all these games, right, where it's always like the little man rises to the top and he becomes the hero of the day. I mean, we all love the hero's arc, right?
Sure.
Luke Skywalker, and that's the only one coming to mind right now. Luke Skywalker, King Arthur.
Well, I mean, That's
you know,
the textbook hero's
the
arc is Luke
hero's
Skywalker.
journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. And so the thing I think that's the most important about, to me, and like what affected me the most about Yakuza Like a Dragon is like Ichi is a sweetheart. He's a genuinely good person and he wants to make the world a better place. And he just gets ridiculed constantly throughout the entirety of the game. He gets shit on from little kids to full-blown adults. No one takes him serious. They make fun of his hair. They make fun of his shitty clothes. And they just shit on him the whole time. And it doesn't matter how much money you make in the game. Doesn't matter all of the things and heroic deeds that you do. Like, people just don't take him serious. They don't see his worth as a hero.
Yeah.
But he sees that in himself, right? And he sees himself as the hero of his own story. And it's something that, like, when you see a lot of these movies, the hero becomes the hero halfway through. And it sets that up as like that. And Ichi, I think why that's so cool to me is like his version of his hero's journey is that he's not the hero for the most part. Like, he's got his friends. You know, he's got the disgraced detective. He's got the homeless surgeon. He's got the South Korean assassin. He's got the cocktail waitress. He's got the manager from the rundown shop, right? And he meets all these friends, and all of his friends are like, you know what? I see something in you, something incredible about you, and I'm going to stand behind you. And like, for me, it's like, I look at my friends, I look at you, I look at all of these people in my life who have decided like to support us, whether it be with Spotlight Games, whether it be with Safe Trash Cinema. And it's like, I don't know. I guess I look at Ichi and being like, look, we're both ugly mugs. we both dress shitty. But our hearts are in the right place, and we have friends and we have people behind us who support us, and like that's what keeps us going. And the story of Yakuza Like a Dragon really is like, it is Ichi's journey, but it's the support and it's the conversations and it's the friends that are backing him up the whole way.
Sure.
But like, I don't think we see that often. And he saves the day at the end. And when saves the day, I mean, he kind of reclaims the Yakuza mantle and like, you know, remove some of the corruption from it. But like, his journey doesn't end at the end of the game. Like, there's more for him to continue to do, to be better, to be this, to be that. And like, having all of the support and stuff. I don't know. For me, it just hit home for me. Like and that's why I love that game so much. Like, sure, the gameplay's fun and the mini games are wacky, but like, it really was just like this connection with Ichi as a character that like I just fell in love with. And like, that really drove me to be like this. I would put Yakuza Like a Dragon in like my top 10 games of all time, just because of that like connection that I felt with Ichi.
Yeah. I know several months ago I gave it a shot and I didn't last very long, but I'm going to give it another shot because I'd never heard that perspective from you on it. So I think it is worth my time to try again. Cause that sounds awesome. Yeah.
You know, there's like there's a big moment where you actually have to prove your mettle to like the protagonist from all of the other Yakuza games. And you have to prove your mettle to him, like you're worthy to continue your journey.
Yeah.
And there's like an incredibly steep difficulty in that. And so what the game's designed to do there is to be like, this is a reality check moment. You need to go grind. You need to get better. You need to get better gear, all this stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, the way kind of I looked at it was like, it's like one of those hurdles where it's like, have you proven yourself enough to be able to do what you're doing now? And like, taking that time to have that introspection while you're grinding and doing all that stuff was like, this is really cool to me. Like, I think they nailed that. And, you know, they took blows in the review scores because of that one moment.
Sure.
But I think that one moment works really well for me because you're like, a lot of people dropped off here.
Yeah.
And like, you don't have you're not worthy to continue forward.
Yeah.
Like, that's a cool mechanic that like made them suffer in the long run, but I think ultimately was a good design decision. And
well, you've
convinced
convinced Nick in the chat. He says, "Well, looks like I'm buying Yakuza Like a Dragon now."
Fuck yeah!
And hey, I don't
did it, boys.
I don't think you have an Xbox, Nick, but it is on Game Pass as well. If you do, but let's bring in one from the audience. This is from Sleepless the Poet, who we also mentioned this week on Save Trash Cinema. Friend of the show, Sleepless the Poet says, Fable, just the whole idea of making choices and how it shapes your character completely, and then how that in turn sort of defines your story. Just very much the quote, the choices you make in life carry weight and have lasting effects idea. Yeah. Which, yeah, that's one of those things. Like I played Fable back then, and I think I was maybe a little too young for that to hit for me, but like thinking back on it after reading that, I was like, oh yeah, that's like one of the first games, if not the first game, where like choice really actually mattered and there were consequences for choices, and the story completely changes based on whether you're good or bad.
Yeah. It reminds me of like Mass Effect 2, especially.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
A lot of the decisions you make in Mass Effect 2 can lead to every single fucking person in your crew dying.
Yeah. Truly. And hey, this was Nick's topic, so let's bring in Nick's answer before I speak a little bit. So Nick, he shared a lot with me on Instagram, and it was like reading this, I was like, oh my God, this is like really touching what he wrote, but I had to pare it down. But he chose the newest God of War 2018. He said how they adapted Norse. I almost said North. How they adapted Norse mythology to match their story, trauma, and how to deal with it. Having played the previous games and seeing how broken Kratos was from killing the gods and his father, and then dealing with those repercussions when it comes to being a parent himself for his son, was really powerful to me. And then in a previous message, he said, or of course, the brilliance of Kingdom Hearts and why Cayman should get a tattoo of a Keyblade on his ass. Which,
you know what? Okay.
Brings up a great point. At some point, we need to build in some sort of a reward where you get a Keyblade tattoo on your ass.
I'll make a deal. I'll make a deal with you guys. I will get a Keyblade tattoo somewhere on my body. Somewhere. Maybe not my ass. Maybe somewhere a little bit more hidden, like my taint.
Ooh.
If I actually,
oh my God, that tattoo would hurt.
If I actually enjoy this game, which I still haven't. They're there. All I have to do is download them on my console.
Yeah, true.
I'm just waiting for you to play 19 Sentinels Aegis Remus
13.
13? What the fuck that name is?
13. There are 13 of them. But yeah, he had talked about, which I think is also spot on, like just the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. Like there's that scene early in the game when they're hunting. And like there are just so many moments throughout the game where Kratos, like he has this urge to reach out and like be a good father and be there for his son. And you see him struggle with that. Like he's such a creature of war and killing and destruction that this impulse for love is not something that he knows anymore.
Sure.
And so like seeing him kind of work through that. And that is a really heavy topic for a lot of people, that like not having a great relationship with a parent, or if they're a parent and they don't have a great relationship with their kid, like that's a really, in such a fantastical world, I think that's a really relatable story for sure.
Yeah, no,
for me, it's a game that I've talked about a lot, but I feel like a lot of the time when I talk about it, I'm like, you guys have heard me talk a lot about it, and I don't know that there's ever been a time where I've really like talked about why I love The Last of Us.
I knew.
Well, I think it was obvious. There are some other ones that I can pull from, but I feel like I can probably say the most about this, not from a quantity perspective, but I think specifically number 2. So this will definitely be, I don't think I can talk about the impact of the story without spoiling some things.
Okay.
I will try to beat around spoilers, but if you're listening and you've not played The Last of Us Part 2, I strongly recommend you don't listen to this, even though I want you to listen to our show. I wouldn't want this spoiled for you, but The Last of Us Part 2 is, when the game was coming out, Neil Druckmann, the game creator and director, had talked about how the first game was about love and the second game was about hate. That was like part of the whole marketing campaign. And then after the game came out, he was like, I was actually lying. That was kind of just, it was a bit of a marketing spin, because by the time you finish the game, it seems like the whole game is about hate, but really it's a game about forgiving yourself and like learning that even if you make mistakes that ruin whether it's your life or just like parts of your life, that if you're able to forgive yourself, then you know, like there's a lot that can come from that, because the game is a revenge tale from two perspectives. Sure. And it, like, by the end of, or by the middle of that game, I despise a character that I didn't think I could despise as much as I did. And then by the end of the game, I love that character and I want more of her story. And there's a one of the like through line themes in The Last of Us Part 2 is Ellie, you know, a lot of it is about her relationship with Joel and wanting to fix mistakes that had been made. And there's a song that he teaches her at the beginning of the game. It's a Pearl Jam song. And the line is, "If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself." And like throughout the game, she plays that on the guitar, and it's used in several moments to kind of look at like where she is at in her journey and where she is at in her pain and what she has had to do and what she knows that she has to do to kind of, in her mind, make things right. And that line, "If I were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself," like you see that happen to Ellie throughout the game, that she has lost Joel and she is just going down this path of everything is falling apart around her, whether it's her relationship with Dina, whether it's just her own life. Like there's just a lot that's going on, that because she has lost Joel, she is now losing herself, and she's doing things that so obvious. Like there are times in the game where it wants me to do a thing and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
As the player, I really do not want to go through with this, but Naughty Dog is telling me the story that they want to tell me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the game, she has lost everything. She has lost everyone in her life. She has lost part of her hand to where she can't even play guitar anymore. Like the one final thing that she has to connect herself to Joel, she doesn't have anymore.
Yeah.
Because she lost the fingers on her left hand, so she can't play. So she truly loses everything. But she's still able to pick it up and keep going and walk out the door. And we don't know where she goes. Maybe she goes to find Dina. Maybe she goes to just find a new life. I don't know. But it does such a good job of, I consider myself an empath. I consider like I play games to connect to these characters and feel what they're feeling.
Sure.
When I finished The Last of Us Part 2, there was like a void in me for like months.
Yeah.
That like, I felt empty for a long time after playing that game, going through what Ellie went through and seeing like, especially at the end when they do the flashback and it's the night before everything happens to Joel. And they finally are like, Ellie is at a point where she can try to forgive him for what he's done. And it's like, fuck. She's like ready to move on and ready to like be with him again. And then it can't happen.
You know, and I think that it's not
like,
just
oh God.
You know, it's not just like losing someone. Like on a micro scale, like I think all of us have moments in our lives where we are in a position like Ellie is, both big and small.
Yeah.
And I can't disagree with a single thing. Like I think the way that they told that story, and the way that they kind of nailed that home is, I've never seen it done like that
ever. It's so compelling.
And this is coming from someone who bawled like a fucking baby within the first 20 minutes of the first Last of Us.
Yeah.
When Joel loses his daughter.
Yeah.
Like that moment to me, like just gutted me.
Yeah.
And then like he regains a new daughter in Ellie. Yeah. And then that continuation of the story in Part 2 is just.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk so much about the first one too. But I wanted to talk specifically about Part 2 because I think there's just so much there. Like it's just such a, no one does it like Naughty Dog. And I can't wait to see what they do next. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention and it's like, it just went away.
It happens, buddy. Well, we have one more, if you don't mind me reading.
Please go ahead.
This comes from friend of the show, Mikey Mike, Boston Mike, the producer seducer. He says, the first God of War. And when Patrick asked him what's stuck about the first God of War, he said, quote, well, I literally have Pandora's box tattooed on me because I love the Greek mythology so much at the time. And you know what we say to that? Nothing says permanence like a tattoo. Exactly. And I also just love the fact that, like, yes, I just love the fact that you got that tattooed on you. It's fantastic.
That's Mikey.
That is That is the most Mike shit ever.
Yeah.
And that's commitment, bro.
Yeah, that is commitment, bro. Yeah, next time you're on one of our shows, I want to see that podcast, or next time I see you. Yeah, Nick in the chat says back to The Last of Us. And I also remember the things. So I want to say that, and then we can wrap it up. Yeah. Nick says how all of these characters deal with pain/trauma and the choices they make to overcome is why I feel like these games are so impactful for us. For sure. Yeah. Like there are so many ways to deal with pain and trauma, and sometimes watching someone else go through something that, like, hopefully none of us ever go through, and seeing how they deal with it it can be healing. Like, it can be like, there are things that you can pull from that. But yeah, the other thing that I thought of with Ellie specifically, something about her character that I think is also impactful for me is once she realizes, the thing that kind of causes all of the, like, the split, some of the things I've said have made it sound like they're in a relationship. If you've not played the game, that is not true. What, like, makes Ellie distrust Joel is one of the decisions that he makes. And she then feels like her purpose is no longer, but like her purpose was taken from her with one of the choices that he makes. And by the end of the second game, I think she comes to the realization that, like, maybe that was my purpose. Maybe it wasn't, but it's out of my hands now. Like, all I can do is control me. All I can do is control the next step I make. And I think that specifically speaks a lot to me because I've dealt a lot in my life. And I know Nick relates to this too. Yeah. I've dealt a lot of my life being disabled, like with my ankylosing spondylitis and it being a degenerative disease. There have been a lot of times in my life, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, like when I used to play hockey, like as a kid, my dream was to play sports as, like, for a living, which is a lot of kids' dreams, but that dream was taken from me and that wasn't my choice. Like I didn't get to pursue that dream. I found new dreams. I'm living one of my dreams right now, doing a podcast with one of my best friends, but that dream was taken from me. And it has been a thing to deal with a lot of my life, and seeing someone deal with that and figure out a way to overcome that and figure out I can only control me, I think is a really powerful thing. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah, this is a deep ending here.
Yeah, a little bit of a deep. Let's we can bring it up a little bit for some really quick an update to the 2022 calendar. As we bring it home to finalize the show. Witcher 3 Next Gen Update has now a planned release window of Q4 from CD Projekt Red. Yeah. And Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Remake officially got a date today for October 28th. So if you're a Call of Duty guy or gal or person, check it out. I, for one, am not, but yeah, so that's coming. That's our show. That's our show, folks. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Thank you, Nick, and anyone else that was in the chat for coming along. This is going to be, we need to figure out schedule-wise, like, are we going to do this every week? Ideally, I think I would like to, but we need to figure that out off air, what the possibilities of that. So keep an eye on our socials, at Spot Games Pod on Twitter, at Spotlight Games Pod on TikTok and Instagram, so that you can keep up with when we will be streaming, or you can just download our episodes on Thursdays on all of your local podcast apps or on YouTube. Subscribe there. Subscribe twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. Save Trash Cinema. Check it out. Got a new episode coming in just a few days. Had a new one come out a couple days ago. Discord. Check it out. All those things. I still, We're 34 episodes in, and I've still never thought about an outro for this show. I don't know why I don't. I
You know,
just wing it.
I think that's the key here. That's the magic here with the outros, is that we just fly by the seat of our pants all the
Hey.
time, and it gives me an opportunity to ramble so that you can come up
Sure.
with something clever to say.
Here. But yeah, thanks for coming along. I appreciate it.
Well done.
I will.
Bow Yangles. Sorry.
It's bow time, baby.
Hey, bring it back.
I'm going to go eat some food, drink some water, and sleep a do. So until next time, Cayman, thank you. I love you. Audience, thank you. I love you.
I love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.